The Fitness Business Podcast is happy to have Dr. Paul Bedford with us today. Paul has some exciting news that he wants to share with all of you. Paul, welcome, and we can't wait to hear what you have to announce.
Thanks, Tori. I suppose the thing I want to share with everyone this year is that obviously due to COVID, due to the pandemic, we are going to make the retention convention, which is usually a small event for 150 people. We're going to do it online, and therefore access to that event will be more global than it has been for the last few years. In the early days when we did the event in 2015 and 16, we did stream it live then, and we had nearly 1,000 people from 11 different countries watch. But the cost got expensive and people weren't used to watching online, so we had to back off a little bit. But now, we can't do it live, so we've gone back online. And I'm really excited. December 3rd, we have our sixth retention convention.
Yes, and this is the 6th year of the retention convention. So congratulations on 6 straight years. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think every year I say to the team, this will be the last one. It takes up too much time. It takes up too much energy. And then we get it done and we do the days and we come away and we're really high from it. And we have a bit of a, debrief afterwards. It's like, that's it, it's done. We won't do another one.
Well, I'm glad COVID hasn't ruined the retention convention. So that's a plus. I noticed that you seem to have a special focus this year. Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about the focus of the convention?
Yeah, each year, but although the retention convention focuses obviously on retention and customer experience, each year we pick a theme. Previous themes have been technology and staff retention and the pure customer experience. But this year we'd always planned to do an event based on developing communities. And I think actually now developing communities and creating communities within your work, your club environment is even more important than perhaps it was at the beginning of the year. We seem to see generally less members coming back than we had before we started, and therefore creating that sense of community, I think, is going to be the thing that holds everything together, at least while we decide or we work out what the new norm is, and we start bringing those people who perhaps are more anxious about coming back into the clubs.
Yeah, and I know, listen, in fitness, community's always been important, but I know we've heard it 100 times, but honestly, now more than ever, community is super important in the health clubs and just the health clubs creating that in people's lives.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, even just the club that I go and train at in the morning, we have this little joke of, I train with my best friend, we train 3 mornings a week together. We've created a community of people who smile and say hello to us.
So one of the other things that I noticed besides the focus this year is that in the past, you've had a lot of the Fitness Business Podcast guests as speakers. Chris Stevenson, Bill McBride, Brian O'Rourke, Emma Berry. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who's going to be speaking this year at the conference?
Well, we've definitely got 2 Fitness Business Podcast speakers speaking at the event. So from Australia, we've got Amanda Brax. I've known Amanda for a few years. She's got her own award-winning boutique studio in Australia. She's going to come on and talk about what she does. And what I love about Amanda is she's so direct. She just goes, we do this, we do this, we do this. We stopped doing that. That didn't work. We tried that. It was okay. We're focusing on it. So she's really, really operationally brilliant and really direct. So she's coming on to speak. And then we've also got Marissa Hoff coming in, who's going to talk about building communities using social media, and more of a digital aspect and what you can do as an operator to build that. Because I know a lot of operators really struggle. They've got their social media platforms, but they don't really get engagement from their customers. And so she's going to do a session on how you build engagement and how you create that community on your social media platforms.
We got some serious girl power going on.
But all we try and do, Dory, is when I choose the theme and I see something, I just want to get the best speakers on the topic. And I think the advantage this year of us being digital means we can have such a broad range of speakers from different countries, whereas usually we're a little bit limited budget-wise because we only normally have 150 people, and you can't fly in 3 or 4 international speakers when you've only got a small event. You can usually only do 1 or 2. So this year there's like, in terms of speakers, no holds barred, the best that I can get on the topic.
Perfect. So we know that you didn't disclose all of the speakers. There's a little mystery, a little bit of a surprise element here. Can you tell us and share with us where the anybody interested in attending, where they can find out more information?
We've got a website. You can come and find a link there. You can look for it on social media. You'll see it on Facebook, LinkedIn, but we'll also provide a link for the Fitness Business Podcast listeners to just link to. There's no cost. There's no cost to attend. It's free. The way in which we work our events is that the sponsors cover the costs of everything, so that you can attend and you can educate your staff. So you can then share that around your team. You don't have to go, who are we going to pay to go? It's like anybody can go, has got a link. But we'll make sure you've got a link that the listeners can sign up to.
Okay, so free. So that means no discount for the Fitness Business Podcast family.
No, unless I start paying people to come, it's the only next level of what I can do. But, JT's been a speaker at the event in the past, and I know he really enjoyed the event. And when I said I was going to do it, he was like, look, let's see if we can link up and see if we can do something to share the knowledge, because that's what it is. It's an educational event. There's no paid speak. The speakers don't pay to speak. Mm-hmm. We don't have sponsors speaking. It's education all the way.
Perfect. And again, just to reiterate, that is December 3rd.
Yes.
And how long should someone plan to open up their schedule so they can attend?
I would say just over 4 hours. So the way in which the event will happen is we pre-recorded many of the main sessions, partly for safety in case anything goes wrong, and then we'll do Q&As. But we're planning to do 5 main sessions.
Well, super. Some great points there. It's free. I mean, you can't get better than that. The fact that you have a 48-hour window to make sure that, if something comes up or something happens, we know how that is at the clubs, that you're giving them time to get all the information in. And please, everybody out there, take a look. And hopefully on December 3rd, you're not too involved in your holidays yet. And you'll set aside some time to get wiser, get smarter, and learn how to build communities within your club for 2021. Your Fitness Business Podcast Snapshot, the business model of boutique fitness, capturing the experience despite COVID, and the modern day instructor. All of that and more coming up in today's episode. You're listening to the fitness industry's leading fitness business podcast for owners and managers, where each week we provide an educational platform for our listeners. Our guests come from all around the world to share their expert advice, tips, and knowledge with you, the FBP family. This month's interviews are brought to you by One Fit Stop. Thank you for joining me, your host, Dory Nugent, for episode number 326 from the Fitness Business Podcast. Emma Berry is our 4th and final guest in our November series, where our guests have been guiding us, encouraging us, and helping all of us to look forward and to shed some light on 2021. Sadly, I hate to see this series end. Our November guests have been so enlightening and have given so much hope to the fitness industry. It's been a historic year, and yes, the fitness industry certainly has seen better years. But we look upon 2021 with confidence and resilience because we are all in this together. Before we continue to our episode with Emma Berry, here is a message from our podcast partner, One Fit Stop.
One Fit Stop is modern fitness studio software built for the growing multi-location studio, providing scheduling, client management, programming, payment collection tools, and more that will set your business up to grow, grow, grow. To find out more, go to onefitstop.com or click on the link in today's show notes.
Boutique owners and group fitness family, Emma Barry has some amazing and insightful information for the future of boutique fitness. I hope that you enjoy this episode. Emma, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today and just taking time to talk to our listeners and giving them a little insight on moving forward into 2021, what the boutique fitness scene hopefully is going to look like.
Sounds great, and so happy to be here. And is there ever a choice when JT and Dory ask you to come on the show? I mean, come on.
So just to give a little background information, you were one of the founding members of Les Mills International. You were the director of luxury lifestyle for Equinox. I mean, you're an author. Your book is Building a Badass Boutique. You're a consultant. You're a speaker. You're a motivator. You're everything I want to be when I grow up.
Oh, I love it. No, I'm just trying to serve in the ways that I can, and it's sort of interesting because the thing that gets a real rise in me is when I'm told to stay in my lane. So, and what I can see in the future is we're going to get to see many iterations of ourselves. So, I hope to share that with the world, and I really try to serve in ways that are relevant in the times. And of course, the times right now are very, there's a lot of change going on. So I'm just trying to morph to the times and be useful. Simple as that.
Sounds like a great idea. We'll take that. So Emma, back in September, when we were in our planning committee, we started to look at the month of November, and we thought, wouldn't it be a great concept to make November like a looking ahead, what's going on in 2021. And then we started kind of thinking about different departments within the fitness industry. So obviously we wanted to hit upon like Group X, fitness Group X, all the little departments that run under the Group X umbrella. And automatically we thought of you, what better choice of a guest to have on than Emma Barry talking about the future. So let's get started. And I'm going to ask you the first question, and that is about the business model of boutiques. Do you think the traditional pass, like Soul Cycle, a lot of your boutiques, they have the passes that you buy, membership option is going to still be in fact, rather than like direct billing, like full service health clubs, like a monthly or a bi-weekly? Do you think that will continue into 2021, or will boutiques relaunch their membership model?
I think it's not only just the boutiques. I think everyone's going to have to look at their pricing model, their path to profitability, because it's going to be dictated somewhat by the times and what people are prepared to pay and what systems they're prepared to enter into going forward. So I don't think my answer is just related to boutique. We know through COVID, anyone who wasn't financially stable, who didn't have a really good business model and they didn't have good cash flow, we know that just cannot be a part of the future. So I think when you just go pay as you go or class by class or packet by packet, we know that there needs to be some stability underneath that. And in fact, that was already being established within some of the more established boutiques. If you look at Orange and, some of the rolling out, F45, etc., they were already sitting on quite a strong base of what you might call membership or more. So it was more of a monthly rather than as I come, because they know if you don't come, you don't get your results, you don't pay, and you leave. So it's all kind of packed in. It's not just about money, it's about retention, and it's about being able to serve that member. And if they're not coming, you can't serve that member. So I think my answer is there's going to be a proliferation of pricing models. You're going to have to be easy to attend if people want to walk in off the street, because with so much uncertainty in the air, no one's going to say, I'll buy a life membership or I'll buy an annual if I don't know if there's going to be more waves of COVID, etc., whether distancing, whether the experience is going to be affected negatively, all of those things. So I think there's going to have to be a range, but there has to be something deeper sitting underneath it. And we know the boutiques that have done well during this time had a really passionate following, and they had people that were prepared to pay through the times by going digital or by being serviced by the brand in another way. So I think it's going to be a number of things, and there will need to be options within that, because we don't know. We're working through the uncertainty together.
Good answer, only because, right, you're full service fitness facilities, one-stop shopping. I mean, most of them, there are some that have the month-to-month option, but most of them always needed to go with the full year commitment, because of cash flow. So I like the fact that, you're like, we might need to look at that, not only just through boutiques, but all of the businesses within that fall again underneath that fitness industry umbrella.
A great example of that's actually Third Space. So Third Space in London, or at least on the other side of COVID, they would have a casual rate. Often you can't get into a high end or a luxury club, but you could get a casual rate because so many people are, so many CEOs and C-suite are actually traveling a lot. So they're not there all the time, or they've come over from Europe or the US or whatever. So it actually makes sense. I mean, you're going to pay for it. It's not going to be cheap, but who cares? You want to get your workout in, and you'll pay a bunch of money to go and do something. So I think it really is asking the whole industry, I think, to meet the consumer where it is. And then certainly discount. The more you come, the cheaper it's going to be. And I think that makes sense. We're used to that in life. But certainly to open it up in both directions, boutiques and clubs, and other sort of subscriptions as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So staying on the business model, and I feel like maybe you kind of answered this, but I'll ask it anyhow. Maybe there's something additional you can add to it. But are there any other business model changes you predict or think owners should explore and roll out in 2021 to help with cash flow?
Look, I think, and it's not necessarily an easy fix, but what we have learnt from the boutiques is that if you can be, and when you are data-led, you have a lot more influence over your membership or over the people who use your facilities. So my biggest advice would be, particularly if you're in the big box, is you have to become more data-led. So whether it's AI generated or you have the business intelligence in the back office to be able to track member behaviour and be able to interact with that in marketing and messaging and segmentation and personalisation. I think these are very critical things because we're so used to it while we're all locked up at home, getting our very hyper-personalised prime packages delivered to us, and everything is very, very curated, our food, our packages, all of those things. And it's just becoming a natural expectation. So I think one of the things is sort of tidying up back office. And if you're not using AI, we're surrounded by that now. We've been pretty slow to adopt that generally as an industry. So I'd really get tied up around that. And then take this opportunity, take this pause to really look at every part of your business and work out how hard is it working to add brand, to add money, to add value to the members, because that's what boutiques have shown us as well. I mean, the new club is going to be a series of beautifully executed, focused boutique experiences within the advantages of being in a larger community of a club. So that to me is the perfect world, when I can have it all and it's the best of it all.
I've said this before, but it's just crazy how many changes have happened from COVID. And I know so many of us want to focus on the bad changes, but there's been a lot of great changes that have happened to our industry and have pushed us, like you said, and got us out of our comfort zone. But now it's starting to become comfortable because now we're into, the 6 month since COVID. So it's interesting. So interesting. So, we kind of started off talking about business model. I'd like to shift gears now and go more into product. So let's talk about the brand new word of 2020, which I think is virtual. We've never heard that word so much in our life. What is your prediction for where virtual has a place in the boutiques in 2021?
Right. So I'll just clarify what you mean by virtual. So virtual in my world and my Les Mills world is digital product that plays within a club. So that would be, instead of an instructor turning up, it would be a digital product in a club. So that's my understanding of virtual. What I understand you're asking me is broader than that. It's digital, like on demand. It could be any type of filmed product. Is that what you're thinking?
Okay, so let's break it down into both. Let's start with virtual, where it's the instructor now filming herself, traditional Group X class. Let's start with that one first.
Yeah, so, it's interesting. We were trying this, goodness, I want to say 10 years ago at Les Mills when I was back in Auckland, and virtual, filmed classes run in club in place of an instructor. at the time, it's fascinating. The thought of it and the actual doing of it are two completely different experiences. So, I work for a number of brands around the world, and virtual has been slow. It isn't like you put up a virtual class and, 500 people arrive and there's a queue around it's not that. But what it is doing is it is a safety net. It's a way to get into group fitness if you perhaps want a smaller, slightly dark, more intimate experience before you. It's like getting fit to go to the nice gym. So it's kind of that. Or if you work shifts, or you want to do a class at 11 o'clock at night, or you want to be in the gym at 5:30 in the morning, or what have you, or it's not in that peak time. So what I expect is there will be a bit of an uptick of this model going forward, because I believe that we've got over the adoption hump. So like I said, the thought of it and actually doing it are very different. When you do a virtual class with one of the best instructors in the world, or someone who's really great and it's been captured and filmed and thought about and scripted and filmed beautifully and whatever, it's actually a great experience. So I expect that in club, I expect will become more popular, and it's actually unfortunately going to be a bit of a necessity too, because I think payroll is one of the big expenses in our industry. And this is a horrible thing to say because, I used to instruct. I'm not instructing currently, but this is a lot of my friends and everything I was brought up around. And the stark reality is that, in between cleaning protocols and cuts in budget and, and shortened less classes and, all of that stuff, is that the net of that in some club environments means there will be less classes available to be taught, or maybe less people to be teaching. That's just the way that it is. It's certainly what I'm seeing in the people that I'm serving right now. So I think there'll be an uptick in that, and I think we'll all start getting really good at digital products, whether they're in club or not. Now, in terms of what's being cast outside the club, and we talk a lot about that, as you know, here in the US around live, what's actually happening in real time, and then what's actually happening on demand. And sometimes they can be the same thing. And those are two different crowds. They've got two different music licensing things around them. They've got two different expectations. They're arguably two different sets of people and teams. They can be the same. But, of course, we've watched the acceleration of the adoption of digital, and in some cases it's a necessity. And the buzz around town, of course, is hybridization. It's the new economy of fitness, which is part physical, part digital or phygital. So it's a little bit of both. So we're definitely seeing all of that now. And just again, the reality that you might decide not to get into digital because you really want to own face-to-face, and that's fine. But just know that the moment that your person leaves your facility is that they will be being picked up by someone else. There's just hundreds of millions of dollars being spent in acquiring those customers digitally right now, whether it's your Pelotons, your mirrors, your tonals, whoever. So I think it's just important to just understand that is the way to scale. Like if you look at, you look at big tech, any of the big tech, Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, they're all trying to monetize this space. They're all trying to grab the market share of who wants to go live or who wants to record stuff and house it somewhere. So that's sort of the new equity everyone's going after.
And let's just go back a minute. Phygital. I had to write that one down. I have not heard that one yet.
You have now.
Yes, right here on the Fitness Business Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first. All right, let's just stay in the product lane for one more question. In regards to like face-to-face, most countries are being restricted by numbers. So their hands are tied with how many participants that they're allowed to have. What happens then with creating the experience, the high fives, everybody switching equipment, which is what the boutique experience was all about? What happens to that?
Yeah, well, and that is an awesome question because, it's funny. I've just been on an investor course in New York City, actually, and we did the case study of SoulCycle. And it's funny because when you go back, and of course, that brand's having some interesting times at the moment, but it's interesting because they went back and it wasn't until they got really crowded and they kept bringing the cycles in closer and closer and closer. And they started realizing that they were having this absolute emotional high that was being created by being shoulder to shoulder so that you were tapping back in absolute unison and stuff like that. So they really captured the whole crowd mentality. So that feeling is real. So I think that's the first thing is to say what you're talking about is a real thing, and the high-fiving and the switching and the energy and just the way that whole thing operates. Now, we are not going to be able to do that, at least not in the near future, but I think this is our call to action is to get innovative. It's to work out how can we now get better at what we do, because I think these have sort of been cheap tricks really, is just pushing everyone in, driving them to a high, making it so hot they're sweating, breaking them through a barrier, sweating all over. Okay, I get it, it's tribal and we're very good at that, but we have to get better at that. How can we now coordinate something so we're together but we're alone? It's that whole thing, but we've chosen to be together in this environment. How can we start doing things? Is there a way that technology could support us in that? So not just biometrics and measuring my heart rate, etc. Is there a way that I could be acknowledging someone across the room in some digital way or some physical way that's actually got some real meaning around it? So those are the sorts of things that I would be exploring as a business owner right now, is how do we start, feeling the pain in the red room if I'm at Barry's? How do I start throwing a bit of love to my partner because we're actually doing time trials but we're just not right next to each other? I think there's lots of ways. Look at Fortnite. Look at all the, and I use that as an example because everyone's like, oh, it's gaming, it's this, that, and the other. It's as much about community because you're actually sitting there with your 6 mates around the neighbourhood in this game, off-world, but actually still talking to each other. So I think we can learn a lot from gaming and just what's happened there. So this is a call to action, guys. This is not, oh, woe is me, I can't do a sweaty high five anymore. Plenty of other things we could be doing if we started thinking about it. Eye contact. There could be some, I'm just making stuff up, but we have to take this opportunity and you've got to be better. You can't just do the cheap thrills. You've got to actually be able to motivate, and it's all about behavioural change and the language that we're using in our head and the way that we get people to respond and the way that we get people to buy in. I think this is great. It's like a lot of the big speakers would be great to be pulling in right now. How do they get a response in a room of 3,000 individuals who are not connected at the beginning of that? Do you know what I mean? It's the same sort of challenge.
You're so inspiring. I'm sitting here brilliant. That's genius. The whole gaming comparison, you're completely right. Hey, I had a son that played Fortnite and, on a Friday night, instead of going out, like when I was a teenager, we all met somewhere and hung out at a pizza place or whatever. He's in the playroom with his headset on, having the time of his life. They're talking and conversing and he's so excited. So I love that. I think that's a great concept and smart stuff. All right, so now let's shift to our final block, and that's going to be the people part, right? Let's talk about, will we see a different staffing model in boutiques in 2021? I know I've been to many boutiques. I listen, and I'm with you. I get the high on being, 6 inches from the person aside of me, in front, right back, the close quarters. But I also love that when you walk in, the guys and the gals that work in the boutique, they're standing around and they're saying hi, and it creates such this fun environment. Do we see a change in that in 2021?
Yeah, I think we do, because again, it's going to come down to economics. So, but there's not to say that there couldn't be as an equally engaging experience as you arrive and when you're in the room, if the right things are done in place. And there's plenty of people. I know that Blair McCaney at MXM did a great study on what people are loving about COVID time. And part of it is space. Part of it is they're enjoying having their own space and their own equipment and still being a part of something and doing something healthy, because health's never taken centre stage like it has now, but actually having their space to do it. So it doesn't need to be a negative thing. It'll be a different thing. Now, staffing-wise, of course, we already know the E45 model, for example, where you literally have 1 or 2 trainers and they kind of do the morning or the afternoon shift. So they're already being treated a little bit more like a staff member who has a job to do, because they don't need to physically tax themselves with every class. They're kind of concierging and motivating and coaching. But, there are other models where it literally is, let's pay a whole bunch of instructors a bunch of money. And I think that that's going to be a pressure on a business that now has perhaps half or 75 or 30% of its capacity, depending on what mandates are around you. And then what that means, and then you've got operational lift of, having to clean everything every 3 minutes and deep clean and in ways that you've never cleaned it before. So I just think there's Yeah, there's a lot going on, but you're always going to be driven by money, I think. And so I think that will change, but it doesn't have to be worse. Here's the creative opportunity again. How do we make this better? You know, how can we use technology to be engaging and help us create an atmosphere more than just, you know, perhaps do the back office and the booking and maybe do the heart rates and stuff like that. It's going to have to work harder than that.
Mm-hmm. Good answer. And here's probably my favorite question to you, because being an old school Group X instructor, I've been through 5 programs of Les Mills. I have the AFA certification, the bar certification, just about everything but Zumba, yoga and Pilates probably, right? The new instructor, what does that look like in 2021? The girl coming in excited to be the instructor. What does that look like? Because I think it's going to be different than what it looks like for me.
Yeah, and again, I don't think there's any new trends now. I just think, as everyone has said, our favourite word right now has been accelerated. So we've already seen the rise of the influencer. We've already seen, things that would probably make you and me sort of roll our eyes and turn in our graves if we weren't here anymore, because you're just seeing all sorts of stuff, the gorgeous girls of Instagram and, the whole thing. We are in a time where ratings, this is Hollywood, baby, and Q ratings and who's performing well and who seems to be accessible, who seems to be a person who's inspirational to follow. And these people can come in many different shapes and sizes and colours and ethnicities and, the whole thing. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with relatability. So I think these softer skills of relatability are definitely coming through. They used to be influencer, and it used to be, I've got a great pair of legs, I'm going to sell a whole bunch of products off that. That was sort of the model. I think what we've seen now, it's been proven to be true, is that provided you can create a following, you will create demand, and then demand, if done well, can monetize. So I think what's going to happen is it's not necessarily going to be, and yet still content is king. So if you're doing your own content, it needs to be safe and all that sort of thing. But, I work on a bunch of different programming teams, and you are always balancing the commercial with the absolutely purest, scientific, best way to do something. And they don't always play well together. We're always in discussions over, can we do that move? Can't we do that move? How many of these can we do? Well, we're not going to get the burn, but you shouldn't be getting the burn. You just get involved in these circular arguments. So I think the new instructor needs to have charisma. They need to attract an audience, because if they don't attract an audience, there is no business. And that is just the way that it is. Accreditations and all of the bodies that support that still have their place. And a lot more places are becoming formulaic, where we'll take care of all of that. You just turn up and deliver it, please. So there's going to be, the shifting model around all of that. But we know from Peloton that a lot of those people have their own personality. They tell their own story. They take us on a journey. And this was my uncle, and I came back from cancer, and I did this. So people are relating to those stories. We're in storytelling times. You've got to be a storyteller. You've got to have enough about you that, gives you credibility. And then if it's not you and your brand, you need to find a brand that you can really align with and really give it your all. There's sort of those paths. Yeah.
It's funny, and I think you agree. Hopefully you agree with me. Please disagree. But I feel like back in the day, going through all of the Les Mills training, they were way ahead of the curve on the journey. I mean, I remember going to the AIMS, especially AIM 2, because at that point they're like, okay, you know how to teach. Now it's all about the journey. And it's just funny because, you listened and you took the information in, but man, now more than ever, you're right. It's about the instructor being able to take the participants on a journey.
Yeah, 100%. And you forget, like when you've been teaching for a while, it's like any job, you forget why you started. And it was always to help others. I mean, very few people, well, there's a few more now, especially with big tech coming in. It wasn't about the money. It was about the number of lives that you could change in the room. It was about people saying this is the best part of my day. It was about, living a life. At this stage of my life, I look at all my friends and those that haven't been engaged in fit, healthy lifestyle. You can tell, like, you turn up to the reunions and there's those who are kind of in the fitness and the wellness history, and then there's all the rest. And you're like, wow, I'm really happy I'm in this industry, Keeps you young.
Yeah. So let's talk, you said about money with the instructor pay. Let's talk about that. Times obviously have changed. Boutiques are strapped. They're a little more tight. They have to be a little more conscious about every single dollar that they pay. How is that looking for the instructor? Are they still paying them the same way, or do you see a different pay structure coming for 2021?
Yeah, there's already a shift in the market now. I mean, if you can't afford payroll, you're either cutting heads or you're cutting percentage of pay, and I've seen both of those things. A lot of boutiques stripped right back to 95, 98% they took out, during these times because they just couldn't support it. If the facilities were closed, they had no money coming in. So this wasn't a comment on them. It was just literally they didn't have the money coming in. So it's either unfortunately furlough everyone and or let go everyone or not have a business. And those unfortunately were many of the decisions many people had to make. So I think, yes, those things are going to be realities going forward. It's also, as we know, been the time of the side hustle. So, we've never seen so many people go online, whop a payment gateway on something, people joining a whole lot of platforms that are existing that help instructors monetize. And of course, it's such an interesting crossroads in the industry because everyone has incredible loyalty always to their members, usually to the facility that they represent or the organisation that they work for. So this has been very interesting because you've now got to choose, do I sit here in my poverty and wait for something, or do I try something and risk, not being seen in a certain light, or am I just literally in survival and I'll do anything to share my skills in order to get paid? So unfortunately, we've watched all of that unravel, on a daily basis over the last 7 months, and it's been tough. And some people have made it, but, that relies on you being really charismatic, being okay with selling yourself, having enough tech skills or the know-how to actually make the couple of steps that you need. And then people have to be willing to pay. But those are a whole lot of barriers that kind of all had to be approached at once, at the same time as the fact that you're probably feeling quite stressed and not your most vibrant self, So it's been such a perfect storm of things. And it's been very challenging, just watching a lot of the forums and being on a lot of the seminars and webinars running around the world over the last 6 months or so.
It is the year of the side hustle. And who would have thought, I'm again from that, you went into the club, you taught 8 classes a week, and that's where it stopped. But yes, and those that seem to be succeeding and coming out ahead definitely seem like they are working the side hustle.
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
Here are 3 tips for running a profitable boutique in 2021.
Number 1, double down on your purpose. Know why you exist and who you are serving, and then the rest will take care of itself. Number 2, find your path to profit. So this is either going to be less people paying more or more people coming more often, or maybe you're reaching them digitally. You've got to look after that. Number 3 would be partnership. You are going to get anywhere so much faster with the help of aligned others. So partner wherever you can, whether it's with your staff, other businesses that do something better than you do, that it makes sense to partner with. My 3 Ps.
Keep Me, smarter member retention. KeepMe.ai.
Okay, let's get back to the show. Emma Barrett, well, what an awesome episode. Lots of good stuff. I was taking a zillion notes.
Glad to hear it.
Oh my, well, thank you so much. So tell us, what do you got going on right now?
Right, 2 things. So still advising the fitness industry, the innovative edge of fitness. So really focused on all parts of the sector, to be honest. I consult to a bunch of brands, everything from boutique and luxury through the mid-market right down to the budgets. So right across there, and also fit tech startups as well. So, and then my other part of my life is Good Soul Hunting. So we have just launched an executive search brand, which is for senior executives, so C-suite, in the fit tech. It usually leans into technology, fit tech and well tech segments, and just really placing people around the globe. So I'm with an awesome team that I used to work with in a past work life. We're based out of London, New York and LA, but we are placing people around the world. So very excited to do that. And then really, my big plugs would really be everything I know is in my book and my masterclass. So, and I get a lot of people reaching out from around the world, and I really, really appreciate your support. So Building a Badass Boutique, which is available on Amazon, and that's both as an ebook and also as the actual old school paperback copy. Of course, that one's going to be better because you get it in your hands and it's been printed in colour and all of that stuff. So there's that. I've then taken that book, as soon as COVID hit, I took it online to a masterclass, and that is the content that I lead my clients through. So by the same name, buildingaboutusboutique.com, and then I'm updating that with various people around the world on the digital piece. So when we launched my book in February, COVID hadn't happened, so all the business basics are in there, and now we're adding on a lot of digital assets out the back. So that's probably the biggest way that I can help you and serve you is those two ways. Yeah.
Well, perfect. Now, here's my question. Is there a new book for 2021?
Not at this point.
No.
Not at this point. Just trying to land this one, to be honest, because I've actually had no new thoughts. It hasn't changed anything. You've got to run a great business. You've got to have a great brand. You've got to have awesome product, and you've got to have amazing systems in the background that really support everything you do. None of that has changed. Not one thing. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, we will make sure that we have all of the links to your business, to your book, to your master class, all of that on our show notes so that our listeners can just go and it's one easy click.
Appreciate it.
Emma, I can't thank you enough. Everybody here at the Fitness Business Podcast, you're always so good to us. You always bring very valuable information. And I just want to thank you from JT and myself, Chantel as well. Thank you so much for coming on the episode today.
Thank you, guys. Love you guys. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
I know that I can speak for the entire Fitness Business Podcast family when I say, Emma, you are such a pleasure to have on the show. Your energy, your vibe, and most importantly, your passion for the industry is absolutely infectious. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing your insight. Well, FBP family, that officially wraps up our November series. I hope that you enjoyed listening all month to our guests that are pushing us with aspiration into 2021. Now, here is a message from our podcast partner, One Fit Stop.
One Fit Stop is modern fitness studio software built for the growing multi-location studio, providing scheduling, client management, programming, payment collection tools, and more that will set your business up to grow. To find out more, go to onefitstop.com or click on the link in today's show notes.
Quickfire 5.
Best-selling author Bob Burg from the Go-Giver series is going to be our guest next week. You won't want to miss it. So let's take a listen to Bob's Quickfire 5 answers. Fitness Business Podcast family, I'd like to welcome Bob Burg, author of the Go-Giver, to our Quickfire 5 questions today. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dory. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, here comes the fun part of the interview. 5 questions, have fun with them, and here we go. First one, who inspires you in life and why?
My business partner, Kathy Tajanel, she inspires me. She is absolutely brilliant, mixes that with kindness, got a great business mind. Yeah, I would say Kathy. She's pretty much an inspiration every day.
Awesome, great. It's nice to have somebody like that in your life. Question number 2. Why do you do what you do?
What it comes down to is I love it. Okay. And, I enjoy feeling as though I make a difference in my work. I enjoy the financial aspect, but really what it comes down to is I just love what I do.
Okay. Hey, there's nothing better than loving what you do. All right. Number 3, here's our fun one. If you were not doing what you're doing, Bob, what would you be doing?
It's difficult to imagine me not doing what I'm doing, but I'd imagine if I wasn't, I would be in some type of sales.
Sales. Okay. That matches. And number 4, what is one book, podcast, blog, Facebook group that you would recommend to our listeners and why?
There are so many amazing books that I've read throughout the years that have added so much value to my life. It's hard to choose just one. There's a book that was written back in the mid-'60s that he didn't even mean to have published. It got published after he passed away. His widow found the two manuscripts on his hard drive, and she told a independent publisher about them. His name is Harry Brown, Browne, and the book is The Secret of Selling Anything. And this book is really, and it's a short, easy to read book, again, based on two very brief manuscripts. It's a masterclass on understanding human nature. And then what he does is he works sales within that understanding of human nature. But the big part is, to me, understanding human nature is the most important study that we can ever take on, because everything that we do, everything that leads to our success, every relationship is about what? Other people. So when we can understand human nature, including our own human nature, I just think that's such an important study. And that's the best book I've ever read on that topic.
All right. Fantastic. We'll make sure we get that on our website so our listeners can take a look at it. And then finally, Bob, next week when you're on the show, what will be an action item the FBP family will take away from your main interview?
I think they will understand the absolute practicality of shifting from a focus on yourself to a focus on that other person, your prospective customers, clients, members, and they will see why it absolutely makes rational, logical sense to place their interests even before your own.
All righty. Well, it sounds like a good topic. I'm super excited. So FPP listeners out there, tune in next week when we have Bob Berg from the Go Giver series.
Hi everyone, Chantal here. Thank you for joining me for this week's throwback episode, when we take a little trip down memory lane and I share some of my all-time favorite episodes from the first 5 years of the show. This week's featured show is episode 122. It was called How to Grow, Lead and Inspire Your Group Fitness Team, and our special guest was Shannon Fable. During the interview, we spoke about where to find the very best group fitness instructors. She shared tips for building your group fitness team and advice for instructors wanting to move into management roles. If you haven't yet heard that episode, then take a listen today simply by clicking the link in today's show notes, or go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and search for episode number 122. Happy listening.
Thank you, everyone, for taking a little time out of your day to listen to this week's show. And just a reminder that all the resources and links for today's episode can be found at fbp.com. And a warm thank you to our founding partner, Active Management.
Hi, FBP family. It's JT from Active Management, the founding partner of the Fitness Business Podcast. Thanks to the amazing technology at our fingertips, we can now work with clients all over the world. But right now, you can join the free online Active Management Facebook community. It's an amazing group of people just like you. Sure, I share weekly resources, but it's the power of the community that you will experience that will make this your go-to Facebook group. Remember, it's free, fun, and inspirational. Go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community.
What you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.